And how do I do? Now we are taking this last debate here in this seal, and actually we should have been four. There should have been four to present it. We have three. We'll see if one comes around, but else there will be more time for the three of who are supporting here, who can say a little bit more about what they do feel about it. I can tell about myself. I am chairman in Midtjylland, the region, and I will moderate this debate. And I hope that you later will ask questions. So if the ego is rising in the audience, though, then we'll go to the questions sooner than if you don't. So I'll look around of you to see if there's anything who's just eager to ask. But now we'll go to presentation round, and Kristijonas Bartsevičius.
Not bad, not bad.
Thank you, sir. But I think you can do it yourself.
Good morning, a very good morning, everyone. My name is Kristijonas Bartsevičius, and I come from Lithuania, where we speak a very peculiar language. And this is one of the least useful languages to know, because only 3 million of people are speaking this language. And there is no other nation which we could communicate in Lithuanian language. But despite of that, I'm really proud to be here, and thank you for coming for this discussion. I am elected member of Parliament of Lithuania since 2020. And to be honest, I'm not in the Parliament, I'm not connected well with the climate issues and climate questions. Although I'm really interested in that topic, and I would say this topic is not very much well covered in Lithuania, because we don't have strong Green Party in Lithuania. And again, and despite this fact, our party, the Conservatives, was the first time when took care of the green issues. And I'm really proud of that. And all the Green Deal, what is happening in the European Union, is also having a footstep in Lithuania as well as a member of European Union. So I think that there are, if we come back to the topic of our discussion, I think there are plenty of ways how to save the nature as well as save some money. And I think that especially if we talk about the people who are not the richest in the societies, we have to talk, or let's say to educate them, not only about the value for nature when you're saving something, but the value for your pocket. And I think this might drive them way much. And I'm happy to share here a bit different perspective, because in Lithuania, our GDP per capita is way lower than, for example, Danish GDP per capita. So that means that the amount of these people of lower income is way bigger than here, for example, in Denmark. So if I would compare the same city of 2,000 or 2,500 inhabitants here, Maya, and in Lithuania, it would be a huge difference. So, and again, in my country, to educate these people who are living in small towns is rather difficult, because they say that, you know, the main thing for me is to save money because I'm not earning much, or my pension is small, and so on and so forth. So this is a really crucial topic when we're talking today, but I'm talking too much, and thank you for this.
But I think it's very interesting also to hear perhaps people who are poor, they reuse more. We can come to that point later.
Sometimes they don't know how to do this, but we will continue about
that. We'll come back. I think that's very interesting to you that you say that. But now I'll try, and I'll try. Duarte Costa?
Not bad.
Thank you, sir.
Hi everyone, my name is Duarte Costa. I'm the co-president of Volt Portugal. Volt is the only pan-European party that is here in this festival. And I am also a climate change expert. I've started this career 12 years ago when I realized that climate change was going to be the most pressing challenge that we are facing in this century. So I thought I wanted to dedicate my career to this. And then a few years ago, 2 years ago more or less, I started to have a level of frustration with politicians and politics on climate that I thought I have to do something with this. And this frustration came for the fact that I was not seeing policies in my country, but also at a European level, that reproduce or that are informed by science and are not ambitious enough, they are not fast enough in tackling this problem that I studied and worked. So I thought that in democracy, if you think things are not good and you want to do better, then you need to step forward. So I joined Volt because Volt is the only political party that exists across Europe, and I believe climate change needs to have European solutions because climate change happens beyond national borders. And it's also a party whose policies are made by members, so consulting with citizens, and informed by science. So I thought if I want to work in this space, then definitely Volt is the party that I want to see grow, and so I joined for that reason. And I hope we'll have time to talk a bit more in detail
I
on that.
hope. And now I think I can pronounce Isabella Arendt.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. My name is Isabella Arendt. Maybe now?
Now,
Good.
yes.
My name is Isabella Arendt. I run for the Danish Parliament for the Conservative Party and member of the EPP group in the European family. I have been a climate activist as a teenager. Back then there wasn't the word climate activist, but if there were, I would have been. And always had a strong interest in the climate field. I've always cared a lot about all the hard topics, or so to say, of the climate debate. I've always been interested in energy production, in how to make sure that the climate debate is, right now, it needs to be a very hot political topic, but hopefully in the future, making green choices, making good climate choices should be the easiest choice, it should be the cheapest choice. So I think we have, as politicians, both in our own countries, but also at a European level, we have a huge responsibility to solve the energy crisis, the climate crisis, in a way where we don't require every single citizen to have to think about this every day. It needs to be easier. And in Denmark, we have a lot of great solutions of the green kind that, of course, we hope to be able to export and to showcase to the rest of the world. We still have issues. We don't have enough green power. We have a lot of way to go, but I think we should work together to make some of the green solutions the cheapest solutions. I also believe it'll be easier to export a green idea to China or India or Brazil or the US or somewhere else in the world if it is possible to run on normal economic thinking. So we don't need everyone to just go with their heart. They can also vote with their wallets.
Well, thank you. And then I will take it to one question that I have for you. That is, we discuss a lot when we are going to the green environment that we should cut down on what we use. But when you ask people who are not earning much money, they just look at you and say, well, I can't afford one holiday a year. How do you say I should cut number 2 or 3? I can't almost not afford a mobile phone, but I have to have one. So I buy the cheapest and have to have it reuse it again and again. But and how will we have that they should take part in the green environment? Some of them are always reusing the things that rich people not can use anymore. Do you have any answer to those people?
No, everybody is looking for a silver bullet. Am I heard well? I'm not sure if this is working. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone wants this what's called silver bullet, like one solution which fits all, and it's easy, and you don't have to do anything, and you don't have to put much of the effort doing everything. But unfortunately, I have to say that war in Ukraine and the crisis of the prices of energy will help us in a way. And I'll tell you a short story that in Lithuania, since April, we're importing zero electricity from Russia, zero oil from Russia, and zero natural gas from Russia, because concerning the gas, we have a terminal in the Baltic Sea where we get energy gas from Norway, US, and other countries. But the problem is with electricity. The prices went up very high because a lot of electricity in Europe is done through gas. And the problem is that in terms of generation in Lithuania, we have very low capabilities. and we probably didn't thought in advance, and that's why we are having this crisis in Lithuania. And just recently, Minister of Energy said that we will teach the society how to save energy. I mean, especially electricity.
And how do I do that?
You won't believe how neglected was the society, and telling who is he to teach us how to save the energy? We know ourselves. And it was very strange for me, because I thought, I mean, if someone is willing to teach you, you have to say thank you and not be, skeptical and so on. And the things might start with changing the light bulbs at home. Very simple things. I mean, there are people who don't have much of the knowledge in physics, and they don't know what is the LED technology, which uses way less energy than the, I don't know how to call this, hot bulbs,
Yes, I know them, light bulbs.
Hot, which becomes hot, if you touch. And today I was walking in my hotel in the morning, and I touched several of the bulbs, and they were hot. That means they're not LED. That means that hotel is not saving an energy. On the other hand, at the room is written that please reuse your towel. So, okay, I will reuse my towel, but I didn't bring my own LED lamps, which I could change in my room.
But did you do that in your country? Did you do a campaign to say change light bulbs,
Not
cut
yet.
down for the heat?
Not yet. Not
did you?
yet, but now we're facing one of the probably harshest autumn and winter in our experience. So I believe that people will think about this, and everybody is hoping for not so cold winter. Then you can, have a bit lower the heating, and it will be hot, and it will be hot. And we have to know this, because it's not Ukraine fighting the war with Russia, it's Europe fighting the war with Russia. So
But what do the poor people say when you ask them to cut down for the heat that they already have cut down because they don't have that many money? And what do they think about that you say to them, you should buy new stuff, for many money, because it will be good for the environment?
The thing is that in Lithuania, we are not as socially aware country as in Scandinavia, but we still have a lot of these compensations for heating, for example, for people who are retired people, or for people who are disabled people, etc. So these who are having the lowest income, they are having this compensation, especially for heating, which is bloody expensive, because not a lot of buildings, even in the big cities, are not renovated, and we still use the central heating, which in a way is a good thing, because it's, how to say, it's better for environment rather than each and every is using the...
But what about the rich people? What are they saying to, or are they just saying, well, you can tell me, I won't do it?
I don't know, everyone is concerned about their money. So
okay, that
even
was
the rich,
a good thing.
Even the rich people, they want to buy the second iPhone or go to second vacation. So
I know it's polemic, but I had to ask. Yeah. And now, what is your opinion about it, or what is your feeling about what in your country? What do they say, the people who normally can't afford much, that they should now change some of their goods that are not outused? What do they say?
Well, I think before answering the question, I would like to say, and maybe you will not like this, but I think this question is flawed. I think we shouldn't be making this question. We have learned already that sustainability has a high price, and only rich people can afford it. And so now we are trying to find ways to force poor people to make choices that, unfortunately, because of their social condition, they cannot do. But the problem is because they are poor, or is it because sustainability is expensive? I would say that since sustainability is a matter of the commons, so it's a matter of all of us, regardless of whether we have money in the bank account or not, we will all benefit if everyone has a sustainable life. So we should make sustainability accessible. And how can we make this? We should have the mechanisms in the free markets that we have to incentivize and reward people that have sustainable life choices, and disincentivize the ones that don't. I'll give you an example. A poor person cannot afford to buy a car. So the poor person will choose to travel by bicycle or by public transport. How much money is this person making for making the right decision? None. But it's actually a person that is doing the right decision because he or she has to. What we need is to make sure that the person that pays for the bus is not the person that is making the right decision, is the person that is making the wrong decision. So For example, if we decide to introduce stalls in cities in which people that choose to take the car have to pay, this money should revert to provide free public transport. If you decide to, for example, in your food options, you are buying sustainable options, you are buying low carbon plant-based options, these should be cheaper than the most expensive. Often poor people have to buy unhealthy products
So you
because
want
they
to
are cheaper.
tax it, or
I want to create a
pay the
mechanism.
payment, and the tax should be that the people, the rich people that are driving their cars should be more expensive, both to drive and park, and if you are buying not ecological foods.
What I think is the problem here is that the commons are not valued. The climate is not valued. It's valued in our consciousness, but not in our purses. And especially it's not valued by the legislator. And legislators, they love this question. Because instead of doing their job of finding solutions through the law to change, they're trying to create campaigns, education, awareness that is really not taking us where we need. And it's actually perpetrating the inequalities we have. I don't think it's fair in society that someone that does not have sufficient money
So more
cannot
politics.
afford to eat healthy food. In a developed world, people that have problems of obesity and health problems related with their diet are often the poor.
So
Not the rich.
what you're saying is that you want more politics and less market. So then
No,
I
that's not what I said. What I said is I want a free market that is regulated. We all, I think, agree that freedom comes with rules. But at the moment, there's freedom without rules. And this is not freedom, this is irresponsibility. And that's what happens in our countries across Europe. And Denmark is unfortunately not an outsider in this case, that there are not enough regulations to make sure that we are free in this market and not irresponsible.
Okay, and I'll ask you, Isabella, is that true? Are we irresponsible here in Denmark?
Yeah, but it's getting better. For example, I think it's a good idea that just before the summer holidays in Denmark, the national parliament actually elected an emission tax. Because the problem is not the free market. The free market generally works. The problem is that emissions are not part of the mechanisms. So I actually agree with your standpoint saying this shouldn't be a lot of campaigns in order to reuse your clothes or spend less money on the second holiday and things like that. It's good, it's sound advice. So if you can think about it, yeah, do it. But if you have not just a poor person, but if you have a normal day life, you have 3 children, there are schools, there are daycare, there are 2 jobs, there are everything, and it's just a normal Tuesday. I don't think it's fair to expect that when you come home from work and you've had dinner and everything is chaos, you should spend time on your family and your children and your husband and not think about all of these climate questions. That's what we have the market and the politicians for. So some of the solutions are emission tax. We have it in Denmark. It's the best solution possible for what we know right now. So to all of you who live in Denmark, yes, there will be mistakes in this mechanism and we will try to fix it. And secondly, we need to have emission tax, and then we need to lower some of the taxes in the industries, because when we want to make actual changes, we need to think of a lot bigger scale. Whether or not my dress is bought second hand or not is of course a good choice. It is, by the way, but the jacket is not, so I'm halfway saint here. So of course that's nice, but how my dress is produced, how the energy is produced, yes, it's a good idea to change the light bulb, but it's much more important to change the power plant. So we need to think in how do we provide green electricity, green cars, green houses, green renovations.
That means that it is that I can sit down and wait and say, well, I'll just do my all-day life as I've always done it until the politicians have made the right decision that is totally free, green.
No, you can't just wait, because you need, as a member of a democracy, whether a national democracy or a European democracy, you need to push the politicians. If you just sit down and wait and say, fix my life for me, fix my planet for me, they won't do anything. You need to be able to vote for green parties. And here I'm actually not just advocating my own, but vote green, no matter what. You vote otherwise. You need to push to say, hey,
I want to spend my Tuesday night thinking about my husband and my family. This requires of you, dear politician, to make sure that the power in my phone or in my car or the fuels or the heating systems are green. And until you do that, I will keep pushing you to do so. And we have the mechanisms, the markets can actually do it. If we tax emission higher and tax some of the other things lower, that'll change the market in order to take care of some of these emissions. There are no companies in the world who are willing to pay more money for the same thing than they have to.
So the solution is both political and the market?
Yes.
And you had a question for about that, but then I'll ask you and the audience.
Yeah.
So you can think about it while
Chris, just call me Chris.
Well, Chris is answering.
Thank
You
you.
can ask, is it right that both market and politics should do something for the environment? Or do you think that one of them are the best to do it? You're getting it out, Chris.
Yeah, I have few remarks which what I heard, and in that case I will be a little bit of devil's advocate, and we'll come with the reflection from Lithuania, or let's say the countries who joined the European Union latest. That would be Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, etc. So first of all, regarding what Duarte said about the transportation means. So the people who are choosing to drive expensive petrol or diesel run car, they are paying excise duty, excise tax, when they are buying fuel or diesel. And the people who are choosing the public transport, they are paying way less per trip, and that is the price. I do agree that it might be lower, and the duty and the taxes might be higher, and so on. So this is my reminder that you cannot tell so that this is only black or white. And again, in Lithuania, if the person is driving electric vehicle, first of all, he's getting a reduction of, I don't know what percentage if you decide to buy electric vehicle. And then you still up to 2023 getting a free charging in the city. Then you have free parking in the city, and you somewhere have the separate lanes in the city. So these are the perks.
So you do something in Lithuania, I can
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, sure. So for sure. But I want to say that to inform you what is happening, for example, in Lithuania, and I guess
But
other
electric
countries.
cars, but
But
electric
what is
cars
the
are very
percentage of-
expensive.
Very small.
Very expensive. So what
very
do
Are
you
these
do?
measures doing the results that we want to see?
Yeah, but look, no, not yet. But look, the electric vehicles came to Europe not so long time ago. Let people to realize and understand. Let them count. I mean, when you buy a car, you're not buying for 1 year. Usually you're buying at least 5 or 10 years. So let them, and maybe if they bought the car just a year or two ago, so then why should they change the car again? This wouldn't be sustainable again. You know, so...
No. I'll put it there because we'll come back to if people want to have a car and they can't afford
I have
electric.
to-
But we come back,
okay.
we have a question, and we'll come back to this with cars and people on the countryside where there are no buses.
Exactly.
We're coming back to that later, but now we have a question.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Catherine, and this is actually to your question about whether citizens or industry should be leading. The only reason citizens are taking matters into their own hands is probably because the politicians are not doing anything. We also have 16-year-old, 17-year-olds who can't even vote, who are calling out for change from the politicians. And so I just want to say one thing. It is extremely important to not make green matters a partisan issue or a Green Party issue. I'm surprised that every political party doesn't have the green transition as their main focus point, because it's absolutely irresponsible to let the citizens take charge when the market can be regulated much easier. Because as you're saying, Chris, if you want to enable citizens to make all the green choices, you have to reform the labor market, you have to reform the transport sector, the infrastructure, all these myriad of things. That's what the government has to do if the citizens have to take these decisions. It's much easier for the politicians to actually regulate the market, like Dorothy is saying.
But politicians have to be elected. If they go and say, I'll make it very much more expensive for you to get on with your life, what do the voters do? They are not that green, I can assure you, as a politician. But I'll ask, instead that I should ask, I'll ask you, and I'll go from here, and then you can have short answer. What do we do about it? And what can we both have the voters going green and or electing green parties? How will you be acceptable green, I would ask? One of each.
Well, first of all, you're totally right. And of course, as a citizen, you can make signs, you can scream, you can change some of the things, but the political system have to take more responsibility, and we haven't, even in Denmark, we haven't been good enough at doing that. I don't have a mandate in parliament, so I could, say it's not my fault, but so first of all, vote green. It matters. And it's not just a party question, because within each party, my own Conservative Party, for example, there are candidates who doesn't care about the climate, and there are candidates like myself who do. So it matters if you're going to vote Conservative, which person within the party you vote for. And it's the same in Socialdemokratiet or Venstre or some of the other Danish parties. It matters which people have the power. Because within the parties, at least the ones I talk to, there's a huge climate debate, there's a huge generational debate about these things as well that changes. And we need these voices heard. So first of all, the votes and the persons in the coming up elections matters.
What is your main green subject? What would you like to do in Parliament?
Well, if I only have to choose
green.
one, and I have several green things I would love to do in Parliament. If I have to choose one, it would be research in nuclear power and power to X. Because I think that'll solve some of the huge industry issues, and really, really could change something.
And that you can, we're going to back to the questions when they have asked, answered all of them. So now you will answer the young lady, and with the one point, what would you, if you're in Parliament, what was the one main thing you would change at first? And that is Chris for you as well after that.
So firstly, the power is on our side. We vote, we decide, we can talk to each other, we can use social media, we can join political parties. It's us that decide who does the decisions for us, and this requires responsibility. Remember, when I said freedom, irresponsibility, we have to be responsible as well as voters. But building on what you just said about energy and what you said, Chris, regarding the situation in Lithuania, Lithuania is being very brave in cutting off the energy support or energy supplies from anything to do with Russia. But that's not the case of the whole of Europe. And in Europe, where is our solidarity with the countries that are doing the right thing? We need to further and further understand that some of the biggest challenges we are facing are European. The energy that you just mentioned, that we need to think about green solutions to provide energy, we need to think it at the European level. Perhaps we would all be able to be more self-reliant and therefore be less exposed to threats.
So a federal solution that
like
we're
Russia.
one Europe?
Yeah, well, we have been discussing, and this is for Volt, this is something that is very obvious. We are interconnected already. We share our sovereignty about many matters already. We can try to believe and convince voters that no, we are national, no, we want to stay on our side, but the reality is that that's not the case. Even if the laws are defined very nationally, our energy, our security, climate, food, the main aspects of our lives are shared with the rest of Europe, but we don't have any democratic mean in the European Union for us to determine what kind of politics we want at the level.
So a federal solution, is that where you start to get the environment better?
The federal solution would allow democracy, so Europeans to decide what European project they want in terms of climate, in terms of energy, but also in terms of international relations with Russia and the US, with tax evasion, with some of the biggest problems that Denmark cannot fix alone, Portugal cannot fix alone,
but I think
Lithuania cannot fix alone.
It's a long-term solution, I would say, with federal. But we'll have to hear from a national state, Chris. Or do you also prefer a federal solution or the national state?
Well, yes and no. I cannot answer precisely to this question because I don't think this is so much interconnected. I mean, the European Union is giving some precise legislation regarding the environmental issues and so on, but this is not the the precondition to be a federal country, United States of Europe, you know. So I wouldn't say that. But during that time, I opened, just to make sure not to lie to you, I opened the program of this government, and it's written that one of the key performance indicators was that environmental protection would become a priority for every resident and company. So when you ask what I did or what I would do, the emission tax was offered in Lithuanian parliament, and I just have to give you the explanation of how the parliament is formed. So the parliament is formed, half of the parliamentarians are elected by the list, by the party's list, and half of them are elected in the constituencies. So these constituencies include all the smallest areas and so on. And the thing is that it didn't went through. Why? Because people from the constituencies, especially the smallest regions, voted against, because they said that in my constituency there are people who cannot not allow themselves to have a car because this is the only mean to reach their job, for example. So for me, as an inhabitant of the biggest city of Lithuania, it sounds ununderstandable because I don't have a driving license and I'm driving public transport each and every day. And for me, it's so natural, and it's very hard to understand family or people who are driving the car each and every day somewhere in the rural area. But even in the city, when they all the time are struggling to find a parking place, paying bloody money for parking, and angry of the traffic jams and so on. So I'm a big fan of the public transportation, and I think this is one of the best.
But habits are some of our problems.
Oh yes, indeed.
But how do you do? How do they get those
so
people driving cars
I voted for the
green?
emission tax, I want to say.
Okay, but have your voters wanting green, but voting perhaps black because of what you just said? They can't afford a green car. What do we do about it?
That's really a tough situation, and you know, just in the first day of being here, I didn't know, when I was checking with the Reisenplan and think how to go, because I was staying in Ranas, and I was thinking how to plan my trips back and forth to Maya here, and when I was in Lithuania, I didn't check so deep, and I thought there will be a bus going back and forth, fine. And then I realized that the bus runs up to whatever, 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. And then some of my discussions ended up 7:30. And I realized there is no bus. But there is a wonderful service of Plus Tour, or I don't know how to pronounce it, Plus Tour or whatever.
More, something,
yeah. And then, to be honest, I asked several of the people, can you help me with this? And they said, I don't know what's that. So I realized that the government is giving you some very amazing stuff which you're not using. So one day, one of the organizers of the festival helped me, because somehow they're not the citizen of Denmark, or I don't have this IDAN thing, so I cannot book it myself. But Stephanie did that for me, and I went with the taxi to Hobro. In Hobro, I took the train and went to Randers.
I think it would be a very big surprise for most Danes to say that Flextrafik is the one who's saving our world. But perhaps it is. You're right. We are doing very much shortcuts. I'm in a region where we cut the buses down to get smaller cars to drive with people instead. That's
on the other hand, today in the morning, the bus from Ranas, there were 2 passengers, me and one lady, and one of them
that's stopped. Not good for the environment.
Exactly, and the bus was huge, I mean the big one, so maybe in that case you maybe can, I mean you have statistics all the time. Yeah. The numbers is very important thing, so if you have statistics, just count, and you know that Sunday in this bloody morning, 9 a.m., there won't be a lot of people. Put a small truck, van.
We are doing it in these years. But Isabella had for a long time asked for
well, first of all, Flextrafik is actually a good solution that can help save the climate, because we have so much data today. And I know a lot of the regionsråd, sorry for switching to Danish words here,
but councils, the councils of regions.
Some of them are already thinking of this, but in order to say this about the need for a car in the rural areas, because that need is real. I think even as climate activists, as green politicians, yes, we need to save the climate, and please don't hear me say anything else than that, but it's not the only struggle. Bringing food on the table is a real struggle. Paying for medicine is a real struggle. Raising children is a real struggle. Keeping families together and keeping your mental health well are real issues. So I think in order to make this green transition in a way where it's not just, I live in Copenhagen, I can easily bike or take the bus or the train or the metro. I have so many options. But if I want everyone to think and vote green and actually opt for the green options, first of all, it needs to be the cheapest options. It needs to be the easiest options. And I need to acknowledge, I don't have any children yet. But
on the way.
I'm on the way to that. But there are other issues, and we need to be able to handle more than one crisis at the time. So when there is a royal family who say, I need my car in order for my world to function, for my family to function, in order for my children to see their friends and have social lives, this is a fair concern. And then we need to make sure that the green cars are the cheapest cars. We need to make sure that you can have share cars, you have carpool lanes, you have different means of transportation. It's easy to bring your cars on the ferries or park at train stops and things like that. But just telling them to take the bus, that's not a solution they can use.
We could say that the more green people are living as a green on the countryside, the more dependent they are of a car. And many of them don't have money enough to buy. So you live green, drive black, or what do you say, Eduard? Or what do you, after that you kept the word?
Firstly, let's make it clear that when we talk about regulation, it's not about regulating people's lives. I don't want the state to tell me what I can do and I cannot do. What I want the state to do is to create a system in which I am free to make sustainable choices, and they add value to my life. For example, if I need a car, I'm gonna go and find a car, and the most sustainable one is the easiest to buy, the cheapest, the easiest to buy, to recharge, etc. I don't have to deal with the fuss, for example, of finding parking because I have parking for my car because it's electric, for example. So it's about regulating the providers of services and products, so that our lives are better. And as you said, families don't have to deal with this hassle. I really like what you said, that this is the jobs of the politicians, and it's one of the things that they can do to improve our lives.
We're back to politics. Do we get a short one, and then we have two questions.
When you say that, this is a struggle for family and they have to have a car, and this is a normal asking not asking to have a car, but it's a normal issue and they probably have to have a car. But the problem in Lithuania, unfortunately, I have to say, is a corruption level. And I have just checked the Transparency International numbers, so you probably know in which ranking is Denmark in the corruption level.
Yeah.
First. So just you to imagine, I checked that Portugal is in the 32nd place and Lithuania is 34th place. So Lithuanians are very creative. Impressively creative. And they will find the gap in the legislation how to do something legally, not legally, let's say, So if we say that if you're living in that and that district, if you have a children 1, 2 or 3 or whatever, if you have a family or you don't have the partner, if you're living more than 10 or 20 kilometers, he will try to push his house 10 meters to that side in order it would be 20 kilometers to his work. He will find the solution how to go through this and so on, and that's why it's very tough. And I will just give you the incredible example which I cannot understand. If you ever check the map, very shortly, in the Baltic Sea, there is a peninsula which starts in the Kaliningrad. So part of the peninsula is of the Kaliningrad, and part of the peninsula is for Lithuania. But it is connected to the land in Russia, in Kaliningrad. So if we want to go to the peninsula, which is an amazing resort, one of the most expensive resorts, you have to go by a ship, by ferry, and then this is 5 minutes trip, but it's very close. But it's 5-minute trip, and when you want to enter that peninsula with the car, before the charge was 20 or 30 euros. If I'm right, from this year is 50 euros because all the nature is preserved and so on and so forth. 50 euros. Official amount of inhabitants living in that place is approximately 4,000 people. Another 4,000 people declared that they're living in that place in order not to pay 50 euros by entering the resort. Can you imagine? So half of the population is not real, and they're paying their income tax to that region.
Because cheaper.
Not cheaper, because entering don't cost for the inhabitants of the district.
So are we there
So
that
they
environment
found-
is only for people living in the countries where we trust
so-
each other and don't have corruption? Because if it's...
No,
it's
but
zero-
it is, I mean, I spent these 4 days in Denmark and I see how people driving very safely, for example, what I experienced so much.
Oh.
People not crossing the street, not on the zebras, not on the traffic lights and so on. I felt very strange because I want to cross everywhere on the red light and so on. And I want to see that everybody's...
Chris, I'm sorry, I will stop you because we
Okay.
have 2 questions and I really want to hear them. Chris?
This question is mainly for Isabella. I hear you, and I hear you have a green agenda. Every time I hear the green agendas of countries like Denmark with 5 million people, obviously I always question myself, okay, do they know that the rest of the world is not going in that direction? And I am not Danish, and I miss Denmark in Europe. I miss Denmark's influence in Europe that it could use and transform whatever you think it's good from 5 million to 450 million. Yeah. And I would like to know what's your take on Europe, and if you're one of those Danish that only thinks about herself and her own little country and forgets the rest of Europe as if you were some kind of, you know,
I'll say
alien.
that Isabella can ask, think about, if you will give the microphone to the other here, then Isabella can think a little about how to large-scale Denmark and Denmark's solution. We're very proud that you are suggesting that, but I'm not aware what Isabella will ask. But there's a question more, and that perhaps that could be for 2 gentlemen.
It's actually not a question, it's more information comment to it, where I would say that on the political side, those in elected should have a look at the initiative that they took in Luxembourg City, where they made all, and in Prague as well, but in Luxembourg, in the city of Luxembourg, they made all public transport free, and they started a project 3-4 years ago, and now they have about 60% less cars driving in, or the initiative that they took in Prague, where all pensioners have free ride on public transport. Why can't other countries not do the same?
That's a very good question, and I'll ask, is anyone else want to say that we have a free, that's a beautiful number? No one? Well, Isabella, could you start to answer the question for the general, and you 2 others, could you kindly give a reflection on the example from Luxembourg, Isabella?
First of all, we have a huge responsibility in Denmark to influence the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. I don't buy into this idea that every country is on its own in this, and I regret that Danish governments, both the ones my own party have been in and the ones we don't, have not paid Europe much attention. But, well, I can't change that at the moment. Two ways we can influence. First of all, we can use the political challenge, and we can use them a lot smarter and use them a lot more than we already do. Participate in the emission tax debate, participate in the Green Deal, in the Fit for 55, and make sure that some of the good green Danish solution, it's a country that are leading in green tech, and we use it way too little. So that's one track. That'll be slow, and it requires a government that actually cares about Europe, and I wouldn't hold my breath. The second track is the industry track, and I know I've talked a lot about the industry in a debate that is about the people, but it's because it's the industries that matter. They have the money, they have the muscles. So one of the reasons I talk about electricity, power to X, nuclear power, energy system, and green tech is because we actually do have some solutions in Denmark that will work at normal market conditions.
So when I talk to some of the green technology industries in Denmark, they don't really care about what the government will do. So instead of waiting for the Danish government up here to help them talk to the European to make them spend, 5, 6, 7 years changing some law that might, they're just going to sell it. So they're just going to talk to the industries in Germany or Portugal or France.
So market is solution.
Yeah, and the only thing the politicians actually have to right now is to make sure that these green tech companies have good market conditions and that we let them, because right now there's still a lot of Danish legislation standing in the way of actually getting these green products out, helping China, India, Indonesia, and some of the really, really great players in this game.
Then I'll say we are slowly out of time, so you have 2 reflections here, and then you'll get, after you have reflected over the tema, you will get a few minutes to make the... Yep.
Okay, so I think your point is super important. We are in Europe together, and there are good practices that need to be shared more. You just shared data that in the same union we have the country number 1 on preventing or avoiding corruption, and then country number 32, country number 34. Why aren't we speaking to each other? What is Denmark doing that is so great that we cannot do in our reality, or at least adapt to our reality? If we had a federation, these are the things that could be done more easily, because there would be legitimate power to interfere in things that should not be happening, corruption. I can say in my experience in Portugal, the EU has been a guarantee that Portugal moved on from being a state that was ultra corrupt and really badly governed from the point of view of public administration to one that has come closer to a bit more European standards. And I mean, I'm ever so grateful for that.
So I could say, here's the market, here's the federation. Now, Chris, what is the solution?
I don't have the solution, and I think that the European Union is basically the solution, and thanks God we have it. I think that, well, to be honest, our commissioner, Sinkevicius, he's responsible for fishery and oceans and so on. So when he was, well, we have only 100 kilometers to the sea, which is the Baltic Sea, and the coast line, and it was a bit strange why Lithuanians should be responsible for such things. But it happens so, and he's doing quite good job. But I wanted to, what I want to say that I believe that this is a common problem. And the problem with that is that Europe, we do understand this. China and US, they don't understand this. And they all the time having this, excuses, or they're not just paying attention to that, because especially in China, it's not important to care of the environmental issues. Never was and never probably will.
So
be.
Europe and now that we are so nice
but
people,
the thing is that
what should
but the world is the one. The planet Earth is one and the same. So either China is putting CO2 and everything, we feel that things here.
So
in Europe
here's foreign policy pressure on the United States and China. So foreign policy, federation, markets.
Another
now
thing about the public transport, yes, sir, but the thing is that it's not the only city in Czech Republic or Luxembourg, it's also in Tallinn, Estonia, but in the first part, why they're doing this is to collect the income tax. Because the public transport is free only for residents, not for tourists.
Okay, we're stopping here because you're getting now, I have a question for you that you'll make your last reply. But I ask for you, sir. We have investigated it in the middle region. If you make the buses free, people go from bicycle into buses. They don't let their cars be standing. Unfortunately, it seems to be the one. So, if we do it, make it more expensive to drive the cars into the cities, I think so. But I'll ask you as a last thing, if we want that the poor people are going into environmental thinking and to sustainability, would it be a good idea that the state just said, well, we can see poor people are not so good at doing this sustainability, now we are giving them extra money to do it? Would you feel that? Would you say, it's a very good idea, if the poor can't do green, we give them money to do green? What do you say, Isabella? And this is the last replic for you all.
No, that won't be the solution. First of all, I don't agree that it's only poor people who don't do green. A lot of rich people buy black stuff as well. A lot of middle class people buy black. So it's not a poor people issue. It's not the poor people who have to solve these issues, because it's the rich countries and the rich people who created the issue. So first of all, no. And secondly, as a good conservative candidate, no, I never think it's the solution for anything for the state to hand out money to a specific group of people to solve a problem. If there is a problem, we have to solve it at the bigger level. We have to lower the income taxes. We have to do something at the state level, because you will never, ever, ever end your handing out check solution, and you will run out of money at some point.
So no. And so next.
Well, to start with, there should not be poor people. We are in Europe, we have plenty of resources, there should not be poor people, and sustainability should not be a premium luxury item. Sustainability is also a matter of quality of life, and everybody should have access to it. And the way to do this is to democratize sustainability. If you separate price from sustainability, as in sustainable options are cheaper, accessible, you will democratize it. There should not be effort for it. And I believe that we need to reward whether poor people or sustainable people, because some rich people are also sustainable. We should reward those that make the right decision, and that reward should be paid by those that are not making the decision, because that's an incentive. And it's not the state taxing. When I hear about emission taxes, it's not that I am against taxing emissions, but I'm afraid that taxing will be a flat measure that will not correct the injustices that already exist. The injustice that some people are paying the premium for being sustainable and some people are not. So have a fair system in which those that are doing the right thing are rewarded, and this will progressively tip people to do the right thing.
Okay.
And I think we need regulation, but we also need a real free market that we don't have at the moment.
Another society.
To introduce this.
And what do you say, Chris?
Well, I totally agree, and I totally agree with Eduard, but no point to repeating the same. But what I would like to add to this, and again coming from Lithuania, is educational part. You have to educate people. Even the simple steps can make a difference. In every single day, if you think about the environmental issues and climate change, starting with balls, ending up with the slow fashion, etc., everything makes difference. So education, starting at school, teaching children very small things. It is really, really very powerful.
What a very good point at the end, because I think it was very good to have this debate. I learned things that I haven't heard before, so I will say many thanks, and I hope that you have enjoyed listening to this debate, and I think we should give them a hand.
Thank you.
And many thanks, and I think this was the last event from this scene, so I hope you have enjoyed the Festival of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you.